I'm embarrassed to say that as long as I've been here on YouTube and as much as I've talked about and praised these games, I've never actually beaten an American Mcgee Alice game. The first one because every time I would try, I would get caught in a vicious cycle of starting the game up, rage quitting it, setting it aside for far longer than I should have, only to come back, not remember what I was doing at all, and have the cycle continue. The second one was just one of those games where I played the beginning of it, absolutely fell in love with it, had every intention of sitting down with it more and playing it all the way through, except I just didn't get there. I never got there, kind of forgot about it, let it fall by the wayside. But as you can tell from the title of this video, that's all about to change, because today we are reviewing Alice's first adventure in the dark and twisted Wonderland as told by a man that I can only describe as the Tim Burton of video games, American Mcgee. Little bit of plot for you guys. Alice Liddell is orphaned at a young age by a mysterious house fire. Soon after, she is taken to Rutledge Asylum, where she does her best to cope with survivor's guilt and things like that. And needless to say, the entire event scars her and kind of F's her up completely. Rightfully so. I think anybody that is unfortunate enough to find themselves in a situation like that would be in a similar shape. But the effects that this has on Wonderland is that it's just not the place that she remembers. And it doesn't take her long to figure out that something is indeed very, very wrong. After a while, she discovers that the purpose of her current visit is to defeat the ferocious Jabberwocky and end the tyranny of the dreaded Red Queen of Hearts, who, in my opinion, is the physical manifestation of the emotional torment that Alice has subjected herself to. Now, this is the part of the review that I want to clarify. Because when I say the things that I'm going to say, I don't want it to paint a picture in your mind that I didn't like this game. Because I do. In fact, quite the opposite. The atmosphere, the characters, the plot, all of that is very, very good, and quite honestly, these things were the driving force for me playing the game all the way through and beating it for the first time. Excuse me. I also don't want to see a lot of negative comments from you guys saying things like, oh, he's just complaining to complain, or he's just being overcritical and whiny. Because you have to realize that this is just the opinion of a gamer who isn't particularly good at platformers, who just played a nearly 20-year-old platformer originally played on the PC, might I add. And the PS3 version that I played is not a remaster or anything like that. It is simply a port to the PS3. So it's not very good. And I am fully aware that everything that I'm about to criticize and discuss is just the characteristics of an aging game. It's the nature of the beast, really. Excuse me. And there's not a whole lot that you or I or anybody else can do about it. The game is what it is at this point. And, at this point, let me just move on and say that the game was rough for me. And not for the reasons that it might be rough for most people. It wasn't the old school graphics, it wasn't the combat with normal enemies or even the boss fights. It's obviously the platforming. And I know in saying that, I think it'd be easy for me to say that I struggled with this game because I'm just not good at platforming. But I think it goes a little bit deeper than that. Because throughout the majority of the game, I didn't feel like I was in control. I felt like I was literally at the mercy of Alice and whatever she decided to do in that moment. Examples of that would be like I would press the jump button and sometimes she would bunny hop and barely get herself off the ground. Other times I would press it and she would just decide that she needed to shoot herself 150 feet in the air and completely miss what she was supposed to land on. There was times where instead of reaching out to pull herself to safety on a ledge, she would just not do anything and let herself fall to her death. Nearly every enemy in the game that I can remember causes some sort of knockback when they hit you, which in pretty much any other circumstance would be absolutely fine. Except for when you finally are able to get yourself up on an itty-bitty ledge or platform just to have an enemy come strolling along and send you flying off whatever it is you're standing on to your death. Oh, and we can't forget my personal favorite, the times where I would cause Alice to jump perfectly and land perfectly on whatever I was trying to get her on, only to apparently find a random out-of-bounds area or invisible wall that would cause her to skid off of the platform or ledge for no reason to her death. And all these things were just made more frustrating by the old school save system that comes with games like these. We all know the ones that I'm talking about. The ones where the autosave feature only kicks in at the beginning of each level, meaning that if any of these random things happen to you and cause you to die, you best believe that it's going to send your happy little butt at the beginning of the level and expect you to do everything all over again. And if you're somebody like me who isn't familiar with the game at all, trying to get through it for the first time, that's going to happen to you a lot. And this caused me to manually save the game literally every 2 seconds. I would do a little bit of platforming, save it, do a little bit of platforming, save it, do a little bit more, save it, fight a group of enemies, and save it. And I really felt like there was times where I was spending more time in the save and loading screen than I was actually playing the game. And, the thing about these is that when you get games like this is that when you are saving or loading your progress, it doesn't happen instantaneously. It takes a minute or two to figure its life out. And I just felt for the amount of time it takes to load and save, the amount of times that I was doing that, it really disrupts the flow of gameplay if you will. But I digress. As annoying as it was at times, it was literally the only reason why I was able to finish the game. It was that mastery and that manipulation of the save load mechanic that got me to my achievement of finishing the game, so I guess I can't say too much negatively about that. I guess at the end of the day, I honestly couldn't imagine playing the PC version on a mouse and keyboard. You know, I'm a controller guy, I need that controller in my hand, and I think that if I was to try and play the game as it's originally intended, I don't think I could play it, much less beat it. And I don't think it's one of those games that I would recommend to people. Like, it's not one of those games where I'm like, oh my god, you gotta check this out. Oh my god, you gotta play this. You know, and I think if I was to give it a rating, you know, I really do love this game for what it is. I have an unbelievable amount of admiration for this game, being the first chapter in one of my favorite series of all time. But I would have to give it a very neutral, right down the middle score of 5 out of 10. You know, and it sucks because I know the reason why I didn't enjoy it was that I got overly frustrated with it. You know, I don't like feeling ragey with the games that I'm playing, because if I can't enjoy the experiences for what they are and enjoy playing them all the way through, what's the point? And I really, really struggled with that. But I think 5 out of 10 is the best that I can do, and I will be the first person to tell you that if this game ever gets a proper remaster, not just a port, like if they tweak the graphics, if they shine up the bells and whistles of the controlling mechanics, maybe tweak the saving mechanics, make it actually more than just a port and completely redo the entire thing, maybe to be similar to the way that Alice Madness Returns is, or whatever the new Alice game is going to be, I would be the first person to play it, and I would probably rate it a lot higher than I did today. But, you know, speaking of Alice, before we go, I would like to invite everybody watching this to click the Amazon link in the banner up above you and check out my Allen in Wonderland books, which is, of course, my take on Wonderland. You can pick up both paperback copies and ebook copies for either yourself or somebody that you love that would be interested in them. And that's about it. That's my speech in my review of American Mcgee's Alice. As always, guys, thank you for watching, and thank you even more for your support. We'll see you next time.